What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Philly Sports Pulse Live on 302 Birds. Alongside my host, Adam Den, we have a very special guest from 97.5 The Fanatic, the morning show's host with Kincaid and Salciunas, Andrew Salciunas. My friend, welcome to the pod.
Jesse, Adam, thanks for having me. I appreciate this. I think it's really awesome that you guys are doing this. And first and foremost, can I say congratulations to Adam? Right before we started this, he told me the good news with the scholarship that you got. So congratulations to you, Adam. And Jesse, I love that we've been keeping in touch since you and I did the camp this summer. So great to be on with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we really appreciate the time. It's an honor, and absolutely.
Yeah, the camp was awesome. I want to thank Andrew again. A couple months back, he invited me to 97.5 The Fanatic just for the morning for about an hour. And seriously, that experience was so valuable and awesome. And I appreciate you for having me there, and I appreciate you for coming on. So,
of course, look, it's my pleasure. I love when people get to see what we do, like see how how the sausage is made, right? And sometimes it's more boring than what people actually think. Like the job itself is really fun. Then you go to commercial break and we talk about our lives. Like people think there's stuff that continues. Like we talk about our lives. We use the bathroom, right? Like we drink coffee. So you got to see sort of what was going on behind the scenes. But doing stuff like this, going to the camp, hanging out with you guys, trying to instill as much knowledge as I have, whatever knowledge that is, it's my pleasure. So, and I love to continue doing this. I love being on the podcast today. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's get right into things. And I think we've got to talk about the Philly stuff first, because this offseason, the last time we did a show, we do our shows obviously Thursday. Bo Bichette hadn't even signed yet.
Yep.
And now, look at things. They got Bo Bichette. The Mets just signed one of the best starters in Major League Baseball and free agency in the market. In Freddie Peralta was fifth in NL Cy Young voting. You get him. They get Luis Robert, who I swear to God, the Phils, they're linked to the guy every year. They've been linked to the guy every year since 2020. It's ridiculous. And I hate to say it, because you know how Philly works. We'd love to dump on the Mets, but I can't see a world where Dave Dombrowski had a better offseason than the Mets this year. Andrew, what are your thoughts as your guest? I'll hand it off to you first.
Well, look, I've been very disappointed with Dave Dombrowski for a while now. I've been saying since the summer of 2024 that he's been living off of his resume, a good one, very good. I mean, he's going to the Hall of Fame, right? So it's not like this guy's done nothing. He absolutely deserves to go to the Hall of Fame. But since he's come here to Philadelphia, I've been left disappointed. Trade deadlines have been disappointing, except for last year with Johan Duran and Harrison Bader. But other than that, every season going into the year, 23, 24, 25, and now 26, the same questions have been there. What are you doing with the outfield? Are you going to mix anything up? Where's your right-handed power? I know there's a lot of people excited for Adolis Garcia because he once did it, but Max Kepler was the same story last year, just from the left side. It was a reclamation project. And I believe in this ballpark that a guy like Garcia could have a nice season. But if you are tired of watching Nick Castellanos strike out a lot, be prepared to see the exact same thing. Garcia actually has a worse strikeout rate, actually has a worse swing and miss rate at bad pitches. So if you got tired of the slider low and away against Castellanos, be prepared for more of it with Adolis Garcia. So when we're talking about this offseason, the Mets, it's been more flashy. But the thing that I like the most that the Mets did, they traded Jeff McNeil for Marcus Semien. I don't think that's a move that's going to be the reason why they go some distance in the playoffs, but it was a shakeup. And the problem with the Phillies is they have not shaken anything up. Yeah, sure, back end of the bullpen guy's gone and Jordan Romano. Did anybody cry when he left? No, nobody felt any sort of emotion with him leaving. The Mets made a decision, even though McNeil was there for a long time, even though a lot of people in New York liked Jeff McNeil, they thought that they needed to shake things up because it got stale. They went to the NLCS 2 years ago. They don't make the playoffs last year, so they go, let's refresh this. We have too much money tied up with a couple of key players like Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor to let this go stale. The Phillies have a lot of money tied up in Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto now, Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, and yet it got stale. And so you bring up Bo Bichette, the amazing thing for me, because sports is all about public relations, right? And it's one of the beauties of sports. Like, we can talk about X's and O's and who's playing well and who's not playing well. Ultimately, it's a business. And the spin that they tried to do at the press conference after not landing Bo Bichette made me laugh just so that I didn't cry. That's the only reason why. When they talked about how happy they are with the club, content was the word that he used. He was happy to have JT Realmuto back. Well, 12 hours earlier, you weren't going to bring him back. You were trying to sign Bo Bichette. You made it clear that you were trying to sign Bo Bichette. And when you didn't land Bo Bichette, that's when you were happy to re-sign JT Realmuto. By the way, where was Bo Bichette going to play? Third base. Who do they now have to say, we love you, we never wanted to trade you for the second straight year? Alec Bohm. So they have to do these weird PR spins about how they were happy with their baseball team all along because they realized they screwed up with the Bichette signing, him going to New York. So you want to compare the off seasons to New York and Philadelphia, have at it. I'm looking at it more so from Philadelphia's perspective. And for the fourth straight year, I'm watching pretty much the exact same team. And that same team has had 3 straight disappointing postseasons.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, your tweet a couple of days ago hit the nail on the head about Dave Dombrowski. I hate to bring up this sort of point. Like I hate to give it the sort of the credence that it has gotten, because I do think it's a little bit overblown, as John Kincaid said. But the whole thing about a few months ago when Dave Dombrowski said that the non-elite stuff with Bryce Harper, right? I loved when you said, why do that and then sign a 35-year-old declining offensive and defensive catcher? I don't buy the pitch calling stuff for a sec. Everybody says, oh, the intangibles, the stuff that, I'm sorry, you're telling me game, what was it, 2 of the NLDS with Strom when Teoscar Hernandez hit that bomb? That entire bat, you're throwing Teoscar sliders in the dirt, right? Mm-hmm. And then you set him up with a center cut fastball that he absolutely destroys. I'm sorry, he is not. He is not the center cut best catcher in baseball anymore. And
look, he's not the best catcher in baseball anymore. He still calls a tremendous game. I will push back on that. He still calls a tremendous game. Strom missed his spot. It's not like JT Realmuto said, hey, please throw it over the middle of the plate here and let's try to overpower him. By the way, Strom doesn't overpower people. So no. I think Strom more missed his spot. I still think JT calls a great game, and every pitcher on the Philly staff talks about it that way, and it wasn't just because they re-signed him. They said it even when he was on the free agency market. So I think he still has that, but the declining asset's real. I mean, he's 35, and let's face it, look at the position. That's not an easy position to play, catcher, and the amount of innings that he's logged, because he wasn't, you look at guys like Salvador Perez, who, as he's gotten later in his career, he catches, he'll DH some days, and he plays first base. JT Realmuto is strictly behind the plate. They tried him at first base a couple of times a few years ago, just not that often, and you can't DH him because you have Kyle Schwarber. So unless Kyle Schwarber's taking a day off or playing the random game in left field like he did a couple times last year, Realmuto, if you want him in the lineup, he's going to be behind the dish. So when it comes to the catching aspect, I still think he does that at an elite level. But when it comes to the offensive production, it's not there anymore. It's going downhill. And the problem is this entire lineup is either going downhill or you don't have set areas in your lineup. You know that Turner is going to be toward the top. You know that it's going to be Harper and it's going to be Schwarber. Alec Bohm is going to be batting, 4th again? He hits 15 home runs. He is not a power hitter. Adalis Garcia is a question mark. He bats 5th. Last year in the playoffs, they had Brandon Marsh batting 5th, which he's not a 5-hole hitter. He's a guy that can make a roster. I don't think he shouldn't be in Major League Baseball. He's got talent, but he should not be batting fifth for a playoff roster. And that's why I'm so disappointed in the state of the team right now, because you take out a few names from last year's lineup, you insert a couple of different names this year, and it still looks very much the same.
Yeah, and I mean, I think from a postseason sense, I'm perfectly with that. I think what I would point to though is that from a regular season perspective, I think having that carryover, and this is something Topper pointed to at the dinner I was at last night. It was essentially like we're adding a guy in Justin Crawford in this outfield with, defensive upside. And, you compare the Mets signings with what the Phillies have had. I mean, Garcia and Robert over the past couple of years are pretty similar in numbers, despite, the difference in money and the difference in assets given up between the two of them. And so I think from a regular season perspective, I'm not expecting a dramatic fall off. I think what's in our heads is just, again, like the inevitable doom. And that's kind of what sinks in my eyes. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and it sucks, right? Because I said this to 100 people on social media because they see my reaction videos. They hear me every single day on the show, and they say, oh, my God, you're so negative. The Phillies don't suck. All right, let me make that clear. The Phillies will make the playoffs. I will make the bet right now that they make the playoffs. I'm not betting that they win the division because not just the Mets, the Braves will be, if they stay healthy. The Braves are a very good baseball team. But I think the Phillies will be a playoff team. I think it's going to be a more dicey September, unlike last year. But that doesn't mean they stink. I still think they're a playoff team. But to your point, it's been the same reason why they've lost the last couple of years. The bats have gone cold. The approaches at the plate have been bad. They've been too reliant on their starting pitching being so good for them and their bullpen being so good for them, where that's not where the money is, right? The money is invested into the lineup. And so you mentioned Justin Crawford. Yeah, he's going to be a really fun story to watch in the regular season. Where's he batting? He's going to bat ninth. So, I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see Andrew Painter. But I can't sit here. If I were to take the names out of it and tell you the Phillies added a back end of the rotation starter and a 9-hole hitter, would that excite you? It wouldn't. But because you know the names and we've been waiting for these guys, it makes Philadelphia fans that much more excited. And I'm excited to watch those guys play, and you got to be patient with them and see how they play out. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you adding a 9-hole hitter and adding maybe a 4th or 5th starter is going to be the reason why they all of a sudden beat the Dodgers in the playoffs, get to a World Series, and win, and the bats don't go cold throughout it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I feel bad in a way for our minor leaguers that are going to come up. The big three that come to mind, like you guys have mentioned, Crawford, Painter, Aiden Miller. The expectations that we have set on some of these guys are insane, are nutty. The Justin Crawford, who has not seen a dime of minor league action as your bona fide starting center fielder with no reps, no learning what goes in the big leagues from the pros. None of that. You're just throwing them out there. It's insane to me. And same thing with the Painter situation. We don't know, but if friends are your friend, Taijuan Walker is not going to be, the Taijuan Walker that, that we saw in the first couple of months of the season. So, yeah, you're going to have to call Painter up at some point. And granted, that's a 5 starter. But again, insane expectations for a guy that put up a 5 ERA. Now, I'm not saying that, he's going to put up a 5 ERA, but because of the injuries that he had, that 5 ERA, that might be, the expectation more than the norm. That UCL, what was it? Tommy John. That's that is not something that everybody can recover from. Now, granted, he's a young kid, so I have more faith than I would a Zach Wheeler, but it's a problem. And then Aiden Miller, the whole thing with Alec Boehm, I don't think that you're gonna. I mean, they've tried to trade Alec Boehm about 50 billion times, and nobody's. I swear I saw a report a year or two ago that they were trying to trade him for what, George Kirby, Tell Marte. Some of these crazy.
There was Seattle and Kansas City were the two teams last year. Nothing ever ended up happening. And then this year they were going to do it more so for a money dump to get Bo Bichette. But because the Bichette stuff falls through, that's why they keep Alec Boehm. And it's going to be another season of 15 home runs from a 6'5" third baseman. The good thing is, if you're looking for any bit of positivity, which, hey, I'm all for it, Alec Boehm's going into a free agent season. So hopefully he comes through and gets his big payday after the season. And to your point about Andrew Painter, look, I know the ERA was 5 last year, and that's not good. It's not something that you're going to be saying, oh, there's no way it'll be better and it won't be better. It might be as bad. Who knows? The stuff's there. That's the important part. The velocity is there. And in the minors, they're always trying to work on some things. So I'm hoping a full spring training with the Major League Club. We're not worried about injuries. They'll probably have a pitch limit or an innings limit on him at some point this year. But I imagine they ease him in back into the rotation. But, yeah, look, they are throwing these guys in the fire. I do think that's the best way. Like a guy like Justin Crawford, the reason why they didn't call him up last year is because he wasn't going to play every day. Yeah. They're calling him up this year because they want him to play every day. And I'd rather him get that shot. It just can't be what they did last year. Last year, the plan was Brandon Marsh was going to be your everyday outfielder. Not that I'm a fan of that. That was the plan. He was platooning 4 games into the season. Like, literally the 4th game of the year, he was on the bench because there was a lefty on the mound, and Johan Rojas got the start. So whatever their plan is, I just hope that it's consistent, that whatever they say in spring training, whatever they say before opening day, whatever they say on opening day is consistent for, like, at least a month in the season.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the Eagles because, Andrew, I know you got a kid, you got a life. So,
it's all good.
Yeah. We got to talk about the Eagles offseason and specifically the offensive coordinator stuff. Because, honestly, I don't know how the Eagles are going to approach this. There's been flaming hot rumors over the weekend that Matt Nagy is an option for the Eagles. That makes me want to die inside. Brian Dable, again, makes me want to die inside because loser energy from the Giants. They lost a big candidate in Mike McDaniel. There were rumors to the contrary that, he hadn't talked to the Eagles, and some people said that he did. But he's no longer an option for the Eagles. He went to the Chargers. Cliff Kingsbury is still an option. Mm-hmm. And then an option that, I don't know if he's necessarily an option now, but I wonder if the Eagles are going to try and do the waiting game. Joe Brady. He is not fired yet, but as we've sort of seen from the dysfunction of the Bills, he might be gone from the fallout of this sort of situation. But I don't know if you want to go that route because, listen, they tried the same thing a couple of years ago. They waited with I believe it was they were playing the waiting game with Vic Fangio, I believe. Mm-hmm. They were trying to get him, and then they ended up with Gannon, that sort of deal. But I also don't want them to do the strategies that they've gone the last couple of years on offensive coordinator with Brian Johnson and the QB coaches, signing them almost immediately and not waiting for the pot to sort of stir a little bit. So how do you guys think that the Eagles are gonna have to handle this offensive coordinator spot?
So it's really interesting, guys, because the initial reports that first came out, and I want to credit Josina Anderson because she's somebody that gets a lot of crap in the city of Philadelphia, dating back to like the Alshon Jeffrey stuff, which ended up being right, by the way. Yeah. The stuff on Brian Dable and Mike McDaniel, the reports that she initially put out were that the Eagles were willing to allow complete autonomy to some of the offensive coordinator candidates, where Nick Sirianni stays out of the way. It's if they hire Mike McDaniel, it's his offense. If they hire Brian Dable, it's his offense. Now, Mike McDaniel's with the Chargers, so that's off the list. Brian Dable has already told the Eagles through, I guess, sources that he's not going to sign with get hired by the Eagles or work with the Eagles. He's either going to take the Bills head coaching job if offered. That's number one, because you'd always take head coach over offensive coordinator. You're going to make more money, and that's what we're all about in this life. If he doesn't get the head coaching job with Buffalo, he's going to go to Tennessee. So Dable's off the list already. He does not want to come to Philadelphia. And so now you're looking at the other candidates, and the other candidates aren't these proven commodities. So are you going to allow complete autonomy where you say, here are the keys to the offense, it's all yours, to somebody that may not really deserve it? It's the issue that we ran into with Kevin Patullo. He was not ready to be – he should never be an offensive coordinator in the NFL. He was not ready to call plays. He had no experience doing it. He'd been in the league for 17 years, and nobody even gave him a shot until his buddy Nick Sirianni allowed it. So I don't want – I agree with you, Jesse. I don't want to see some other non-proven commodity, but we were reaching a timeline now where the top candidates that the Eagles definitely wanted are no longer available. So now you're at that second tier of guys. The name that intrigues me the most is Bobby Slowick, who used to be the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans. And then they got into a bit of a beef, C.J. Stroud and Bobby Slowick. So that's why Slowick leaves Houston. I forget if he got fired or if his contract was up and they didn't extend him, right? So then he leaves Houston and he goes to Miami and hangs out with McDaniel for a year. This is a guy that has offensive play calling experience. By the way, that was the best year C.J. Stroud had. So if we're talking about quarterbacks where you question, all right, how elite can they be? There are questions about Jalen Hurts, and I think they're fair questions. It's not whether or not he stinks, because he doesn't, but there are questions about his game, his limitations. A guy like Bobby Slowick, I saw get the best out of a quarterback that just threw 4 interceptions in a playoff game the other day. And their defense is the only reason why they probably made the playoffs. So that's a name that really intrigues me. I get you with Matt Nagy. It's a no moving of the needle higher. Like when I saw that name pop up, I was like, all right, go ahead, interview the guy. That's where we're at.
It's the same thing to me, that's the same kind of vibe that I get with Brian Daboll. I'm sorry. Like anybody associated with that Giants team, it's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. Every single offense that he's really run, to me, I mean, shout out Elliott Short Parks of WFP. He came out with a tweet a couple of days ago. Almost every single offense that he's run, it's been bad. 2018 offense with Josh Allen, not good. The Giants stuff. He's not a certified leader, and
I'll say this: he might be a horrible head coach, right? Yeah. Like there are guys that can do certain jobs in the NFL. Brian, you brought up Brian Johnson, right? Yeah. Everybody in the league that's talked about Brian Johnson speaks of him highly. He might just not be a good offensive coordinator. He might just not be a good play caller. Brian Daboll, I think, could be a good offensive coordinator in the NFL. Absolutely. I just don't think he's a good head coach. I mean, the guy's a nutcase. He's trying to get Jackson Dart to get out of the blue tent when he's getting his head evaluated. Yeah. Like, maybe he's not a good head coach. How many times have you heard the name Buddy Ryan? I know you guys are a little bit younger than me. Yep. Buddy Ryan, an incredible defensive coordinator. Horrible head coach. I know Philadelphia loved him because they beat the Cowboys, and I don't care if we go 2-14 as long as we beat the Cowboys. He knew how to speak to Eagles fans, and that's why people loved him. He was a horrible head coach, but he was a great defensive mind. So maybe Daboll is a good offensive coordinator, just not a great head coach. I would have been fine with the Daboll hire. It's just telling that he doesn't want to come here. So then you start wondering, all right, who else is it? You mentioned Joe Brady, very intriguing name. I would love it. I just wonder if Buffalo doesn't hire Daboll, does he get promoted to the head coaching job? That's the storyline that I'm waiting to follow before they start interviewing him.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think I would have been thrilled with Brian Daboll, and I really point back to what he did with a quarterback in Josh Allen, who I think at that point in his career had similar limitations to what we saw with Jalen Hurts a year ago, right? It's the utilization of the middle of the field. It's the ability to work within an offense that's been so limited to the outside fringes and, kind of the limitations of his run game and the way he opened up Buffalo's run game with the utilization of Allen's legs. So I would have been all in on Daboll. It becomes very difficult now, as you pointed to. I like Bobby Slowick. I think my biggest struggle there was, again, his implementation of the run game in Houston behind a really bad offensive line. And they were very simple conceptually, like the Eagles in that way. And I think, what I'm looking for in an offensive coordinator candidate is not just the improvement of Jalen Hurts, but the improvement in the diversity of this run game, because they struggled so much over the course of last year, just not being able to figure out whether or not they wanted to be a shotgun team, an under center team, what they want to do with Jalen Hurts' legs, and all those things together. I think based on that, I would love for a younger name to be able to step in here out of a proven tree and be, kind of an up-and-coming force. That is not what seemingly the city of Philadelphia wants. That's seemingly not what Jeffrey Lurie wants. But I look at names like Nate Schilhaas out of Los Angeles, and I look at even this Bears guy that they were throwing out earlier today, and those are run games and offenses that were very, very diverse and very stylistically different from what Philadelphia was this season. And I think that would be important.
Yeah, I think what scares me with guys that have never called plays before, and look, Patullo, the guy had eggs thrown in his house. Like it was bad, and that was a bit too much. Definitely too much. Don't do that, children. Patullo knows football. All right, he knows more football than the three of us here collectively. He does, but there is an art to calling plays. And so you can give me all these young, hot names that worked under McVay and worked under this guy and worked under that guy. But to me, I want somebody that has called plays before, even if it's at the college level, right? Like Charlie Weiss Jr. is a name that a lot of people are talking about. He's a young offensive mind, but he's also called plays. There is an art to having this sheet of paper in front of you and knowing what to call on 1st and 10, but also knowing what to call if we gain 8 yards here or if we lose 2 yards. And I think that was Patullo's biggest problem. It's not that he doesn't know football. It's not that he doesn't know offense. I believe that he does. It's why Nick still wants him on the staff despite removing him from the offensive coordinator position, which I think would be weird if he would stay there. But that's just me. I'm a prideful person. Maybe he's not. I don't know. But guys that know the art of 2-3 plays down the road, or running a play in the first quarter to set up a play action pass in the second quarter. You show the exact same look, but you do a different play at a different time in the game. That's something that guys with no play calling experience don't understand, or they don't know yet. And in Philadelphia, we're not giving Kevin Patullo a year to learn, and then year 2 will get better, right? Like nobody was willing to give Kevin Patullo a second season to see if he learned off of year 1. Would have been different if the Eagles were a rebuilding team, but the Eagles have a Super Bowl window. So that's why I can give you all the names of the world. Me, the biggest thing is, did they call plays before at any point in their career? Were they successful at calling the plays at any point in their career? It doesn't have to be the hottest name in Mike McDaniel. I just need to be able to know that in the second quarter, if my defense is gassed because in the first quarter, your offense was barely on the field, which is what we saw all year this year, I need to be able to know that my offensive coordinator will be able to come up with a couple ideas to keep the clock going. Or at halftime, when defenses make their adjustments, look at the numbers of the Eagles' second half points this year. I think they were 6th worst in the NFL, and the 5 teams that were worse than them weren't in the playoffs. The Eagles were one of the worst second half scoring offenses in the league. So what does that tell you? At halftime, the defenses make the adjustment. The Eagles then go out there with the exact same game plan. They get punched in the mouth, and then they have no idea how to punch back. And that was the story all season long. It's why you lost games like Denver and Dallas. It's why there are games that were closer than what they should have been, and you couldn't pull your starters out in the fourth quarter. So I need a coordinator that can kind of keep the ball rolling and know 2-3 steps down the road what the next play will be.
Yeah, and I think the marriage between both, honestly, that and is a name that we haven't even brought up yet. And I think that's Cliff Kingsbury. And that's a guy who you've not only seen it proven in Washington, and I know there are the concerns about, how his systemically this offense kind of degrades in that second year, right? Because it becomes predictable, it becomes stale. But you look at year 1 in Cliff Kingsbury offenses and what he did with a guy in Jaden Daniels, it's a lot of similar stuff for what we look for in Jalen Hurts, right? It's a lot of, multiple options as far as route progressions. It's not this simple hitch route stuff that we all go on and whine about every single day. It's, a lot of usage of his legs and different conceptual usage of his legs in the design run game. Like, it's very unique in what it is, and that's a proven name as well. So I think the marriage between what all of us want, honestly, in between would be that. It's just the question of, what is this Philadelphia Eagles job to him? And that's something that we've said over and over and over again, right? If you're passing on this Philadelphia Eagles job, and I'm a Cam Ward guy. I love Cam Ward. I love what they're doing in Tennessee. If you're passing on this job for Tennessee, given what they have in their skill position room, what they have across their offensive line, I have serious concerns about what this offense is going to look like in 2025. And
by the way, that happened after the interview. So Dable interviewed with the Eagles, and then the report came out, Buffalo or Tennessee. So what went wrong in this interview? What did he not like? Maybe what did the Eagles not like, right? Maybe the Eagles didn't like some things. It can't always be why the Eagles suck, right? It could be they didn't like some things that Brian Dable was bringing to the table. But it is pretty interesting that the day after his interview with the Eagles, the report comes out that it's between those two teams for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you guys bring up a great point about kind of the state of the Eagles versus the other thing. But I think this it's a bigger point than just teams. It's the cities overall. Like, first off, you are not going to have to worry about getting your house egged as much as say you're in Tennessee. First off, but in some of these environments, I don't want to say that the fans don't give less of a damn, but there's a level of passion in this city that just people aren't gonna, they don't take crap. The people of this city, the fans of these teams, they know what they know what this team is capable of. Yeah. They have a Super Bowl MVP. They have a wide receiver. They have two wide receivers to put up 1,000 yards. They have an offensive player of the year running back. They have a championship level defense that carried the Eagles for 98% of the season. Mm-hmm. They know what this team, can do when they have good offensive coordinators. When they had a Kellen Moore. So I honestly, if I was an offensive coordinator, there are things that I need to consider. I gotta consider my mental health, honestly, but also that there are aspects of this team that I would worry about. The offensive line. I think we got to start with that. I really worry about the state of the offensive line going into 2027. Lane Johnson, I really do not think that, because of the injuries, I do not think that he's going to be the same player. And that sets up, as we saw, that sets up everything. That sets up Saquon. That sets up the blocking. We saw that Grant Calcaterra was not the blocker that we thought he would be. Same with Dallas Goedert. But that sets up everything. You've got that. You've got a wide receiver that might have beef with the entire organization, asking for trades during the season, apparently a couple of times. So that there are things that I would keep in mind if I was going into this hiring, if I was on the market. There's certainly some disadvantages, honestly. If you're looking at Philly,
it's to me. So if you were to ask me, is the Eagles' offensive coordinator job an attractive one? Face value, I'd say yes, right? Because you mentioned Kellen Moore, Shane Steichen. These are two offensive coordinators that one in a season and a half, because Steichen took over midseason the first year of Nick Sirianni. In a season and a half, was given a head coaching job in Indianapolis. And then, of course, Kellen Moore, after one season winning the Super Bowl, gets a head coaching job in New Orleans. So when I think of it that way, I go, man, look at the promotions that these two guys got in league circles because of the jobs that they did in the organization. An organization, by the way, that has been one of the most successful ones since 2000, right? If we're talking about from the beginning of this century, you had the Patriots dynasty, Chiefs dynasty. Name me the team that is better than the Eagles since 2000. All the NFC Championship game appearances, Super Bowl appearances, and, of course, now 2 Super Bowl victories. So
Baltimore.
Surface and Baltimore, right? So Baltimore, Pittsburgh makes the playoffs every year. They don't win anything. But, like, if you look at the Eagles and you look at the organization, you go, all right, this is a great one. Why wouldn't somebody want to come here? And then you start unpacking all the reasons that you just talked about. Who knows about the future of Lane Johnson? Who knows about the future of A.J. Brown? There's enough questions out there about Jalen Hurts and what type of quarterback he is and the limitations that he may have. There might be a candidate that goes, I can't work with him, right? And that's their prerogative. That's their belief, their systematic belief. It's not, I don't like him on a personal level. It's, I've watched the film. As much as people want jobs, they also want the best job for them and their offense may not suit what Jalen Hurts does. The offensive line you mentioned is a question mark. Look, it's a tough place to play. Philadelphia. It's a tough place to play, tough place to coach, all that kind of stuff. The egging of the house, that was a one-time thing. It was stupid. It was ridiculous. But it is a tough place to be. And I don't think it's necessarily the city and the fans. It's the expectations of the organization. The 2 years they failed, they fired both offensive coordinators. Nobody complained about it. Nobody was sad that Brian Johnson got fired. Nobody was sad that Kevin Patullo got fired. But think about it. The 2 years they failed, the offensive coordinators got fired. So if there's a candidate out there that might be getting their first shot, or maybe this is their last shot, right? Maybe there's a guy that was an offensive coordinator before, didn't necessarily work out, like a Bobby Slowick. This is my second shot, maybe my last shot. If it doesn't work well in year one and they fire me, what is that going to tell the rest of the league? How am I going to go into the interview process and explain to people why I got fired by the Philadelphia Eagles? So once you dive deeper into it, you understand the concerns. But what organization doesn't have those concerns, right? There's a lot of bad quarterbacks in the NFL. There's like 5 or 6 where you're like, yeah, they're really good. And then there's a lot of question marks. Injury is always a factor. Players are always going to retire, right? Trent Williams might retire for San Francisco. He's a Hall of Fame left tackle. So it happens all the time. So I can't sit there too much lying awake at night saying, oh my God, nobody's going to come here because of some of these circumstances. But if you are a Brian Dable and you're going to be sought after by a lot of teams, you may go, this might be the safest route for me, because if it doesn't work with Cam Ward, well, it's just the rookie, the second-year quarterback. He wasn't developing well in the NFL. It's not my fault. And then Dable gets another job elsewhere. So there are, I would say, some concerns with getting this job, but I still view the Eagles' job as one that I would love to take, because the eagerness to win, the willingness to spend money in order to win, the draft capital that they're going to spend on offense, because the defense is all young. The defense will get paid, so they're going to have to add new players, new life on the offense in the draft. There are things to be excited about if you're the potential offensive coordinator of the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, they have 4 top 100 picks, guys. Like, that's insane. And their ability to continue to stack and compile those over the course of the last drafts and Howie Roseman, the way they've drafted in that way, especially on offense, I think is huge. The impending Goddard free agency and the A.J. Brown stuff are a discussion that I know we're going to have. But at the end of the day, like, they do have the assets to be able to slowly work to replenish that because of how they built this roster, because of how they've built the quarterback's contract, right?
Yeah.
They have consistently, and it's the joke around the NFL, that they're the team that is always willing to push the money down the road and just deal with it then. But they've done it so smartly with these restructures and the way they've created these contracts that it's not going to affect them at any point in the near future. They have like $15 million in cap space next year, and that's fine. And so I think you have to have some faith and some confidence in that if you're looking at that from that perspective.
Sure. Look, if you guys want to talk about AJ and Goddard, look, they have to draft their replacements. Doesn't mean replacements that they're off the team, right? The Eagles, the thing that I love about the Eagles, it's just weird that it's taken this long. I always compare the Eagles to the Phillies with catchers. The Phillies have always had a catcher, right? Like, and a good one, like JT Realmuto. Obviously, there were some years with Cameron Rupp and Eric Kratz, but it was JT, it was Chooch, it was Dutch, it was Boone, right? Like, they've had catchers for like the last 30 years, 40 years with the organization, where the Lieberthal, like, these are the backstops that have been there for a long time. The Eagles have done that with tight ends, right? Before Goddard, it was Ertz. Before Ertz, it was Selleck. And before Selleck, it was Chad Lewis with a couple of weird years in between with L.J. Smith. They always are good with drafting the replacement, but normally the starting tight end is there for another 2 years. Like, Goddard was here for 2 seasons before they traded Zach Ertz. So this is kind of weird, uncharted territories with the Eagles where they might draft a tight end, and if they don't re-sign Dallas Goedert, your rookie tight end is your number one tight end because it's not Grant Calcaterra. The A.J. Brown stuff, they need to draft a receiver regardless. They have to start preparing for what's next. And unfortunately, what's next is probably A.J. Brown not being on the Eagles. I had Adam Schefter on my show yesterday. I asked him about the reports that took place last week, and he confirmed them, that A.J. Brown, since week 3, numerous times had asked for trades. And this is Adam Schefter, right? I believe Joe Santoliquito. I want to make that clear because a lot of people ripped him for the Carson Wentz article that ended up being 100% accurate a couple of years ago. The A.J. Brown story comes out. I confirm it with Schefter. Schefter, if you believe him more, he's the lead insider of the NFL, right? So it started. The ball started getting rolling. He did say they could fix it. You could mend fences. You could mend relationships. You could try to appease him with the new offensive coordinator. But you also have to keep in mind he is reaching 30. And you're going to have to start – like, look at what Seattle did drafting Jackson Smith and Jigba when they already had DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Look at what the Buccaneers did by drafting Emeka Egbuka when they already had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and multiple players, multiple wide receivers, talented wide receivers. They still took a wide receiver early in the draft. It's something the Eagles are probably going to do whether A.J. Brown is here or not, but it seems like the answer is more not, unfortunately.
Well, do you guys think that there's two aspects to this. One, A.J. Brown, to me, just when he did get the ball, wasn't as effective as in years past. But do you think if the Eagles get a competent offensive coordinator, do you think the relationship between him and the Eagles is going to be mended, or do you think it goes deeper than that?
Look, yeah. I also want to make this clear. Like, A.J. Brown doesn't have an issue with the organization. Like, everybody that I have talked to, and I'm talking about the reporters. I'm not sitting here telling you I have inside sources, right? Like, I'm talking about the people that are at the locker room every single day. A.J. Brown's still loved. Like, there is a reason why he was voted a captain again. Like, they do. Like, it's the funniest thing. Everybody hated Darius Slay. The team loved him. There's a reason why he was voted a captain. There's a reason why the players loved him. People on the outside may not have liked him, but inside NovaCare, they loved him. And inside NovaCare, they love A.J. Brown. It is true. I don't think it's like some beef personally with anybody. It might just be he does not like the way that the offense is run because it does not maybe appease the goals, the personal goals that he has. We all think winning the Super Bowl is all that matters. And I'd rather win the Super Bowl and watch him have 0 catches. But that's me. I'm an Eagles fan. I want to see them hoist the Lombardi Trophy. This is a guy that worked his rear end off to get to college, to get to the NFL, has 2 straight 1,500-yard seasons, and then kind of becomes an afterthought because of the ground game. And he's probably thinking, well, that's not what I want to do. He wants his cake and to eat it too, and it bothers us, but that's what's going through his mind. So I don't think maybe a new offensive coordinator with ideas that could get him more involved could be something that brings him back. But I also wonder if he looks at the quarterback and goes, all right, if I went to an offense where the quarterback will throw the ball 30 to 40 times, Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, I'm not saying he's going to these teams, but quarterbacks that on a given week will throw the ball 30 plus times. The best season the Eagles had was last year when they won the Super Bowl when Jalen Hurts was throwing the ball 20 times. That just might be what he doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to be part of an offense where there's so few bites at the apple, where he's a guy that wants as much as he can get.
Yeah, I mean, I think where it gets complicated, right, is where we try to guess what A.J. Brown wants.
Right.
I think that's become our biggest issue is, just trying to figure it out because over the course of the season, right, it changes consistently because you look at earlier in the season, it's the lack of targets. You look in the postseason game, I mean, he's getting heavily targeted, but the route tree is, very simple and different. And the offense is struggling. And, during the losing, he seemed frustrated as well. So what does A.J. Brown really want? And that's really what makes me, even hesitant to when I'm thinking about all these trade rumors is just, this is a guy who 2 years ago ESPN has a stat where they track receivers in every single metric, whether it's as a route runner, whether it's as a physical receiver, whether it's in their athleticism. AJ Brown was in the 97th percentile. He's one of 3 receivers to ever do that. Puka Nacua was the other one this year. That was a year ago. So I don't think that dramatic slip off occurs in just a year, right? I don't think that's something that just happens. And that is why this whole situation drives me mad, because I hear, these reports and I hear Shefty saying he's going to be traded. And I just think, like, systemically, like, how as an organization can you argue that is for your greater good?
It might not be.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And like, look, I don't want him traded. I think that one of the misconceptions about doing what I do for a living is because we talk about it, we want it to happen. I don't want it to happen. AJ Brown makes the Eagles better, period. Like, and Howie will tell you that. Howie said it in his end of season press conference. You work hard to get great players. You don't want great players to leave. But the problem is, if he personally does not want to be with the Philadelphia Eagles anymore, he personally wants to go to an organization like New England, because that's been sort of the smoke since this all started last year before the draft. If that's what he wants, that's what he wants, right? And yeah, you sign a contract, but name me the athlete that was upset with where they were at and then they played out their contract. It just doesn't really happen. So I don't think it is best for the Eagles to move on from him. But if A.J. Brown wants to be moved on, and there was enough drama already this year, they may have to say, damn, we just have to do it. Let's hope that we get the most out of it when it comes to draft capital. And Howie will then be in the lab to cook up another trade for another wide receiver, or use that high draft capital for another wide receiver. It's an unfortunate situation, because I'm right there with you. Like, he's an extremely talented player. They won the Super Bowl with him on the roster. They got to another one with him on the roster, and that was a year where they did throw the football, right? We act like they were only successful because they only ran the ball. It wasn't that long ago where they were more of a high-powered offense, and they got to the Super Bowl with it. And losing him is going to be a major kick in the you-know-what, but you hope that they have a plan afterward, because this is a key guy that they would lose if they were to trade him. But it just seems like it's heading that direction.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if we want to live in a world without AJ Brown, right, I think the greater priority to me would probably be the mid rounds in this draft, because this receiver class particularly is very top of the draft heavy, right? We think of guys like Jalen Tyson, we think of Carnell Tate, we think of, those top receivers. And then as it kind of slows down into the late first round, the early second, there's a lot of guys with a lot of questions. So I think as we continue towards draft time, that's where I'm looking. And then this free agency market, I think, is also a tough place. And that's part of what makes this incredibly interesting, is you're looking at, how free agency has kind of devolved over the last couple of years because of the trade market. And now the top free agents are Alec Pierce and Romeo Doubs that you're looking at to kind of supplement you as a passing game. And so I think I trust Howie Roseman. I trust his ability to evaluate. Evaluating wide receivers has never been the greatest Howie Roseman strength as
Chandler Ranker
history. But yeah, I think that's kind of the range you're looking at, and so many other needs, right? Guard, what do Dickerson and Hammerstein look like in the future? Corner, edge, like, it continues to pile up. So just a lot of questions that you're going to have to answer, and just this AJ Brown stuff just continues.
It's another one, right? It's not the only question. It's not the only issue. There's a lot of things that they're going to have to figure out, but it's just unfortunate where you're thinking, it's like, think about your own personal life, right? You got bills to pay. You got this, I got a kid, right? I want my wife to be happy. And then all of a sudden you walk out to your car and you have a flat tire. And it's like, seriously? Like, I already got enough going on in my life, and now I have a flat tire. I'm not trying to compare AJ Brown to a flat tire, but it's like, you're worried about the offensive line. Your offensive coordinator was such a disaster that you need to hire a new one. You have to start worrying about paying the defense, because guys like Jalen Carter and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean and Jordan Davis, everybody that we love, is going to get paid soon. You're probably not going to pay Nakobe Dean, so he's going to leave. So you're hoping that Jahad Campbell takes his next step forward. And, oh, by the way, your number one wide receiver potentially wants to be traded. And it's like, damn, really? Like I already got enough on my plate in my life that now I have to deal with this flat tire out in my driveway, and I'm trying to get to work. It's just another thing that's piling up right now on Howie's plate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, those are all going to be questions that we answer over the next couple of weeks, couple of months, and I can't wait to bring it to you all as we go forward on the Through Two Birds Podcast Network. I just want to thank Andrew for coming on this week.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
This was awesome. If you ever want to come on again, the invitation's always open.
Sure.
Just throwing that out there. But yeah, just want to thank everybody for watching. And just want to shout out our sponsors real quick. Nick's Pizza, TickPick, El Diablo's, the Delaware Faves. I'm not a Delaware guy, but shout out the Newark Delaware
Pizza
Faves. Oh man, yeah, I definitely got to come down there at some point. But just want to thank you all for watching. Thank Andrew again for coming on. Adam, congratulations. Yeah, that's all I got. Go Birds. Have a good day, everyone.